thanks for the opportunity. And I'll share this PowerPoint here and just acknowledge that one of our former colleagues, Nicole Seltzer, we have to start off with an acknowledgement of her. She recently left River Network to go work for another nonprofit that's focused on Colorado River issues. But Nicole really started the Colorado River Basin program for River Network and was at it for 7 years and really championed the Colorado River work that we do and hired both Chelsea and I to continue her legacy. I don't think that was her plan a year and a half ago, but that's kind of the way that it's worked out. So let me get this going. Okay, Chelsea, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Brian. So we'll just jump right into this. Brian and I will be talking about River Network today, what our organization does, as well as our own team's strategies and priority outcomes. And then I'll introduce the Stream Management Plan program in our peer learning network, and Brian will close it out with a introduction to the Yampa River Collaborative. So River Network has been around for over 30 years, and we sort of built this unique niche as the only national nonprofit whose sole purpose and mission is to connect and strengthen the national network of water, justice, and river advocates who work on water at the community, local, state, and regional levels. We have 3 focus areas, which we identified through our strategic planning process, which we just wrapped up, I think, earlier this year or last year. Healthy, resilient rivers, safe, affordable drinking water, and climate resilient communities. And all of the work, or I would say most of the work that Brian and I do, is housed underneath this healthy, resilient rivers focus area.
So I'll share a little bit more about that work in Colorado, and it, as Chelsea said, falls generally under that healthy, resilient river. And some of the goals that we've identified, at least over the last couple of years, specifically in the grants that we receive, we have a major focus on the Yampa River, and some of that because of our colleague Nicole and her passion for the Yampa River and living in that watershed. But also the real recognition of the importance of the Yampa to the Colorado River, and it being one of the last generally free-flowing rivers that go into the Colorado that are tributaries. So it is an important part of the work that we do, and I'm fortunate to spend a lot of time up in the Yampa Valley in the Steamboat area working with organizations there. In particular, helping them implement their integrated water management plan, and I'll talk more about that and the Yampa River Collaborative later on. One of the other goals is empowering communities. Chelsea touched on that a little bit, but really 2 of the objectives that we have are integrated river management and providing the resources to communities across Colorado, specifically on how to integrate river planning, river health, various aspects of that, as well as the community pieces of it, and then advancing Colorado stream management plans, and Chelsea will talk more about that in a minute. And then the last one is building innovation champions. We at River Network, in particular here in Colorado, really focus on the innovative side of planning, of stream management planning, of integrated river management planning, and other aspects of that, including environmental flows, workshops, and trainings. And so that's really the focus right now is in the Yampa, and then empowering communities and building innovation champions across the state of Colorado. And it's been a real joy to get to dig in and work closely with so many community-based organizations in the work that we do. Some of the strategies that we have around community-driven planning for healthy river corridors. So you can see there's strong and capable lead organizations, sustainable funding for planning. We really do focus on helping identify funding sources. Willing partners to support planning, that goes hand in hand with the innovation side of where there's willing partners, they tend to be on the leading edge. And then we work and support primarily, in particular myself, on the technical assistance side of providing Healthy Rivers Roadmap and then Chelsea really working with the communities on developing those plans. We oftentimes joke that social science is a higher power than river science, than the physical sciences, but the jury's still out on that one, I think. I'll turn it over to Chelsea to talk a little bit more about how we integrate those strategies into our priority outcomes.
Yeah, so when it comes to the work that we do, I'll talk a lot about stream management planning, and we have some focuses on these 4 components of stream management planning. We are seeking to work with agricultural water users, private landowners, and tribes. Generally in the past of watershed planning, you see recreation and environmental being like the face of these efforts, and we're trying to break out of that and recognize that there's these other folks who really need to be involved. We also have a focus on federally listed threatened and endangered species, or state species of concern. There is a lot of opportunities there for connecting stream management plans to these efforts in ways that are more collaborative. And then these other 2 have to do with wildfire and fluvial hazard zone mapping. So we're interested in this integrated approach to planning moving forward. Again, sort of similarly looking at other types of planning within the stream management planning process. Our other priorities, these 3 have to do with watershed coalition and group support. And we have seen interest and a need for providing information and education and support around environmental flows. There's a lot of interest in that at the state level in Colorado. So we're looking into that in the next coming years. And then this is sort of Brian's bread and butter, the integrating land use policy and regulations with river corridor management. So trying to make a more integrated approach to how we do this kind of planning along with coalitions. And these would be a lot of municipalities and more like government related folks, in addition to our traditional community-based organizations. And finally, we are in line with what the state is trying to do using their EnviroScreen tool to look at where plans can be done and where there's need with communities related to folks that are disproportionately impacted. So that's something we've wanted to do in the past, and now we have this nice tool that the state uses that we're planning to incorporate in. Now that you have an understanding of our sort of internal guiding stars, I wanted to just mention that the reason we focus on stream management plans is because it's a priority for the state. There's other reasons as well, but the state back in 2015 released their first water plan and had a big emphasis and focus on stream management planning. And they recently updated that plan. Stream management plans are still really important to the state, although they've sort of lumped them into a suite of watershed planning tools, which is something we're considering as we carry out our work with our peer learning network. But the state funds these plans. They're important for the state to meet its goals and objectives in the water plan. And we are very aware and paying attention to this plan in our work too. So what is a stream management plan? We've been talking about it, but not defining it. And stream management plans are data-driven assessments of river health that help communities prioritize how to protect or enhance environmental and recreational assets in their watersheds. These are collaborative, voluntary processes. So the goals that come out of plans are not only informed by sound science, but they're informed by stakeholder concerns and priorities. This figure and these questions are tools that we use to help folks understand what it takes to do a stream management plan and some of the questions you should be asking yourself at the beginning. But what I want to highlight here is that just like any watershed planning process, engaging stakeholders is central to that process. It's something you really need to take a lot of time on at the front end of the process and throughout while you're doing the planning. The other piece I want to mention is that when you're doing these plans, it's not a let's just do it all at once. We really think about them in phases, and so does the state of Colorado. They really like to fund these in different phases. The define purpose and scope phase itself is a big one, and one that kind of will help you to understand where you need to go and what you need to include in your river health assessment, and then the projects you identify, how you prioritize those and implement those. I just wanted to highlight that one of the things we do at River Network is we work with the state to track stream management plan progress. And we have found that there are 30 plans that have been initiated or completed across the state. In this map, you can see ongoing ones highlighted in green and completed ones in orange. And if you're colorblind and you can't see this, I'm sorry. It's something I've been thinking about for a while. But from 2016 to 2021, over $8 million have been invested in these communities that are doing these stream management plans. Half of those funds coming from the state and just about half coming from local cash and in kind. And from the 14 stream management plans that have been completed, there have been 350 project recommendations. And the cool thing about these projects is that they're not only focused on those environmental and recreational assets, they also have integrated agricultural water uses, municipal water uses, because in the end, when you bring stakeholders together, they identify this multi-use need in their projects. So you can see that we have made a lot of progress, but there's definitely more work to do in Colorado. So the Peer Learning Network provides stream management plan leaders and coalitions around Colorado with a venue for information sharing, problem solving, and peer learning. We have over 150 members that are part of our network right now. Most of those folks are leading or secondary leads or affiliates with stream management plans. And we see nonprofit watershed groups, other community-based organizations, cities. Sometimes we have conservation districts and water conservancy districts all leading those plans. But also part of the network are consultants who are either hired on to stream management plans or just have an interest in them. We also bring those folks in to provide content for our network. We have our state partners at the Colorado Water Conservation Board who provide content and help us think and strategize through what the network should be focusing on. They also fund this work. And then in line with the state's sort of move to this more broad watershed planning focus, we've seen more people come in who aren't necessarily doing stream management plans, but who are interested in this network because there's a lot of crossover. Our work is guided by an annual survey that we put out with our members. And we ask them what kind of content to cover and how they want that content to be delivered. And we put that into an annual work plan that we get input from our partners at CWCB and elsewhere to kind of tell us if we're hitting the marks. I'll talk about our evaluation in a minute. That's another thing guiding our work. But these activities are things that we do every year. So we have an introductory SMP 101 webinar we host to kind of feed the pipeline of people working on stream management plans. We have a resource library, another slide I'm going to talk about in a minute because it's a really neat tool and resource. We have an online community that we host on Mobilize, as well as an email list to share information with our members. We also host quarterly calls and field trips and annual workshop that are sort of all thinking about that planning wheel and utilizing it as sort of like a framework for how the kinds of content we deliver. And I had to just put these other folks on here because they are also part of our peer learning network team, and they just help us make the network what it is and create even more interdisciplinarity into what we do. All right, so here's a QR code. This resource is meant for people who are working on stream management plans in Colorado. But if you're working on any type of watershed planning process, I think that this tool is just such a good resource. And we use that wheel again to sort of guide what kinds of resources, models, examples, methods you can use for your stream management plan. And I highly recommend it. We also post all of our resources from our trainings and webinars on the website under the community and learning page. So check it out, because if you're doing anything in this space, you'll find something there that will spark your interest, I'm sure. Finally, this year, the Peer Learning Network had an evaluation conducted by Point B Strategies, and they interviewed and surveyed our members. And what we found were a number of recommendations. These are just some of them that I thought I would highlight here. But from a process standpoint, our members want more regionally based learning opportunities, which isn't surprising, because learning from your neighbors is a lot of times more applicable than learning from like more broadly delivered content. They also wanted us to think about our communication strategies, specifically that online community, which oftentimes is crickets and it's just me posting things. And so we're thinking of moving more towards a newsletter a la WCCN. And then finally, they really enjoy the relationship building component of our work and want to see more of that, especially the in-person stuff. From a content perspective, we weren't surprised to hear that people want more information on the implementation phase of stream management planning. We've been doing this work a long time. A lot of those folks who started plans years back are now doing the implementation, and there's a lot of money for it. So people want more support there, and we're responding to that. And we're also planning to convene an environmental flows cohort based on the needs and like our interest in making that more accessible, because there's a lot of moving parts to that. So we're doing that next year. I'll pass it over to you, Brian.
Thanks, Chelsea. I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about one of the organizations that is a part of the Peer Learning Network, but is kind of come out of the planning process that Chelsea described. She talked specifically about stream management planning. Another form of planning is integrated water management plan that the state of Colorado also supports, that tends to involve more of the agricultural community, whereas stream management planning oftentimes is more of the environmental and recreational community. IWMPs include environment and rec as well. So the Yampa River Collaborative really formed early in 2023, and Deb Kleiman, who's on here, is helping us out facilitating the collaborative. And so if we get into a discussion, we can rope her into answering some questions. But it really came out of a recommendation from the Integrated Water Management Plan. They had 20 recommendations, and I'll show a slide here in a second that shows those. But really how to bring together, in particular, the nonprofits that were operating in this space, that were part of the Integrated Water Management Plan that comes from the Colorado, or from the Basin Roundtable. But these nonprofits that include Friends of the Yampa, Community Ag Alliance, TNC, the Nature Conservancy, Trout Unlimited, Yampa Valley Stewardship, Sustainability Council, and a few others that are on the periphery. And that group has come together to figure out ways to move the 20 or so recommendations from the IWMP forward. And some of those are specific on-the-ground projects. Some of those are ongoing studies, but really to make that, as it says, that concrete progress towards ensuring a climate resilient and balanced Yampa River. Here's just an image, and this is probably small if you're on just a laptop, but this is, I think, a very succinct way of showing all 20 of the different recommendations that came out of an integrated water management plan. If you're familiar with that planning process and the documents that come out, they oftentimes are these 100 to 200 page or plus documents that don't always provide a succinct way of sharing the recommendations. And I share this just as an innovative way that River Network and the Yampa River Collaborative came together to produce this summary document of the different recommendations. One of the first ones there, and you probably can't read it, but I'll just note it, that it's build support for IWP recommendations through coordination, collaboration, partnership, communication, and leadership for agriculture. And that's right up the work that Chelsea talked about, and I mentioned in the beginning of our work on the front end of working with agricultural communities, working lands, across Colorado on these complex and difficult challenges. And really the collaborative includes this, as I mentioned, the Community Ag Alliance that among different things or varying things supports local producers. They have a market, but they are also involved in the local policy of water use and agricultural practices. And one of the neat things about the Yampa Collaborative, and Deb really helped shepherd this through, is the charter that they developed. Coming together, they all have their own areas that they focus in, but they recognize they were stronger together. So they focus on efforts balancing the health of the Yampa River ecosystem, coordinating and learning from each other. Again, that knowledge sharing, that peer learning, and then to incorporate the collaborative strategies, initiatives, and funding opportunities. So again, finding ways to really work together on specific challenges that were identified in the IWMP, but really are not single purpose issues, but much more requiring larger issues or a larger coordination. A couple of examples of that here, looking at some of their balanced river principles of how they work with water in the river, what the river corridor might look like from an agricultural perspective, or from a use and recreational use access standpoint. Really thinking the Yampa Valley Sustainability Council really focuses on climate resiliency, and they bring that to the table, which is an interesting addition to more conservation-focused organizations, or river and water conservation-focused organizations. So this slide just really touches on how they work together, and any sort of ways that they can make the various cycles of or circles of the Venn diagram come closer together to really provide this balanced river that was really the theme of the integrated water management plan that sets the stage and really anchors the direction that they had together in implementing that plan. With that, I will turn it over to Chelsea to do wrap up and take some questions.
Yeah, so we're just going to run through this so you remember what we talked about. River Network works to strengthen a transformational national network of water justice and river advocates. We have 3 focus areas, including healthy, resilient rivers. Our team, Brian and I, focus on coalition and watershed group support, as well as stream management planning. And a stream management plan is a data-driven assessment of river health that helps communities prioritize how to protect or enhance environmental and recreational assets. Our peer learning network provides leaders and coalitions with a venue for information sharing, problem solving, and peer learning. And the Yampa River Collaborative is a group of conservation and agricultural NGOs with the goal of providing sustained leadership to make progress towards ensuring a climate resilient and balanced Yampa River. And I put in here several other resources. Brian and I represent 2 of something like 25 staff at River Network. We're working on all sorts of things as an organization, and I put in here some of the more recent tools and webinars that are coming in the next week or so that I thought you might be interested in. And I also want to put in a plug for River Rally, which is our big organization it's a big gathering of water leaders throughout the nation, and it's going to be in Grand Rapids next year in May. And I welcome you all to join us at River Rally. That's all I got.
Forgot the thank you slide.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chelsea. That was fantastic, and it's great to hear all the wonderful work that's happening up in the Yampa River Basin and across Colorado.